All right, hello and welcome to this episode. This is one of the episodes in the Let's Talk About video series, and today we're talking to Craig from Go-To Games. Hi, Craig.
Hi.
And we're talking about online retail. Now, Craig, with a name like Go-To Games, we're going to assume that you sell games, but just tell us a bit more about the kinds of things that you guys sell.
To delivery drivers, etc., I always say that we sell bouncy castles, which is the type of game that people don't seem particularly interested in. But I started the business in 2012, so it was very much a bedroom sort of startup and through uni. I've always been very tech oriented, so it's always been something that I've sort of been led into from a very young age. But then also I've had a lot of experience within my work experience, for instance, to do with brand. So for a very long time, brand was something that I worked within, and then eventually it was about me wanting to create those things. So I've been very lucky with some of the people that I've been able to work with. So for instance, I was a manager at John Lewis. I was lucky enough to work for brands such as Jaguar F1 team when they existed and things like that. And they were very short stint, a lot of them, but for very specific amounts of time based on a specific project. And so a lot of that stuff is built into the way that I do business. I'm very much an online retailer, but I have aspirations, obviously, to move into a more physical space at some point as well. So I sell video games online, but that hopefully is just the beginning of the journey, as it were.
Now, selling things online, let's just cut to the chase here as far as some of the bigger, people like platforms like Amazon and eBay and those kind of platforms where the majority of people are selling. Those are absolutely cutthroat, aren't they?
I think they're cutthroat to the extent of the fact that obviously the fees that you're paying on those sorts of platforms are much higher than, for instance, sitting at the pub and trying to sell your friend a video game. And also within the internet, obviously there's fees on fees. So it's a lot of what I do is about understanding the fact that we're in a very dog eat dog world, especially online, and that goes from social media right through to attempting to sell things. But it's about understanding as well that actually what it is that the internet is very much a tapestry. So it's very difficult to tap into one area without the other area also being important. So just putting all your eggs in one basket is something that I know a lot of people do, and especially in the times that we're in at the moment. I think that there's a big lesson for people in the sense of that isn't always the best thing to do. But then there's also things like Pareto's law, which say that you should be focusing on a certain percentage of the things that actually make you money, and looking at the development of your company based on that stuff. But yeah, they're very cutthroat in the sense of that they move very quickly. We understand about other elements or things that people are upset about these companies for, perhaps, but I won't mention what they are, but I'm sure people have their own opinions. But also it's about understanding the fact that they make up a very large percentage of the internet. So I think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And the thing with me is that partnership is more important, and who knows what's going to happen. And again, it's especially at this time, who knows what's going to happen in 6 months or a year, So it's about making sure that you're ahead of whatever curve you are experiencing or wanting to be on, if that makes sense.
Because I obviously just let people know you are my number one client, and I think to date you've possibly bought quite close to 50 spreadsheets since I've known you. But the very first one that we made was a simple. Well, it was simple. It's now evolved into something far more complicated. But a price calculator from a point of view of what do we sell the products for on each different platform? Because if you're selling on 2, 3, 4, even 10 different platforms, they're all going to have different fees and things involved. So you can't just sell a product at a flat rate. You've got to be careful because you've got to find that balance between what can I sell it for and still sell it for where I'm actually making money. And there's a fine margin there, and you need to be on top of that. You can't just, I've met people sell online who just kind of, okay, I'm going to charge 50 quid, whack it up, hope for the best. You can't really do that, can you? You've got to be a bit more savvy about it.
And it very much depends on what your aspirations are in terms of what your growth pattern is, etc. So Amazon are very good at, for instance, offering services available that allow people to ship things direct from supplier, and then apparently you get to sit on a beach for the rest of your life. So that's a part of selling online. But then it's also understanding that yeah, there's differences in everything, and actually I can't really imagine a world in my mind where I don't understand or have as much of an understanding as possible of things like my costs. And what a lot of people tend to do, I think, and I'm on a lot of groups online and things like that I read into and I comment on where I feel necessary. But a lot of people really do think it is just chucking things in a box and sending them out and sitting around and doing nothing. But the implications that exist based on that methodology are very different. And the way that I always look at it, and especially with the guys that I employ, is when I was younger and I really loved DT, for instance, which is design and technology. And they would bring up a project and they'd say, we want you to make a clock. And within 5 minutes, I'd drawn what I wanted to create. And then they'd say, actually, Craig, what you need to be doing is you need to do your initial ideas, then you need to go and get feedback on those, and then they need to come back and you need to look at them more closely. And then obviously there's a cost involved, and we've got a budget based on what clock you'd like to make. And there was one project that I did where I said, oh, no, I just want to make a clock. Like I know I want it to look like a house, and I want the lid to open, and I had this big idea. And by the time I finished making it, it was a complete shambles, and it was because I was well over budget. I didn't have the correct fixings because I didn't look at them properly. I just went and selected them as I went, as it were. So that can be the same. The same can be said for the way that you shop. Is that do you shop when you're hungry, or do you shop based on a plan? And are you comfortable with budgeting, or are you comfortable just with what you see is what you get? And for me, I've always been very meticulous in the way that I like to think about things. Also, I think that productivity comes from those thought processes, and I'd much rather spend my time filling my dishwasher at home thinking about spreadsheets and algebra or selling fees than talking about the fact that Jackie isn't a particularly nice person, for instance.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean. I mean, if I close my eyes, I just see the Matrix. Not like
I know you do.
I'm constantly thinking about ideas and how to put them into place and that kind of thing. But I think the other thing about the retail, and one of the reasons why you and I mean, I think when you and I met, it was like in the movies where the heavens open and the light shines through, and it's just like, oh. And I think the reason why is because when it comes to online retail, like the business you're in, there's so much raw data available, almost too much. And I think the whole concept behind what I do is actually taking that raw data and making it understandable. And I think that's why you and I have gone on so well, because you understand what the raw data is for, you understand what you want it to tell you, and I can then come in and make the spreadsheets do with the data what you want them to in order to tell you what you want to know. And I think that's where a lot of other people they don't get the data, they don't look at it, they don't get the information available, they just go. But I think that's what's so important, is understanding what's happening, comparing that data, and then when it gives you the answer, you've then got a clear picture, and you can then run with your ideas and do what you need to do.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it's and again, it boils down to organizational processes based on an ever developing idea. And I mean, I've had, for instance, 4 or 5 meetings this week with companies that are using, for instance, social data. And that's very, very different to what I do in terms of my buying and selling or any of those sorts of things. But the data that you're able to grab, even from an AI-based robot that is purely looking at Wikipedia articles across the whole catalogue in order to find a particular set of keywords within the first 10 lines of the wiki article, and the results that come back on stuff like that are incredible. And that's just based on the way that I think about it, is that if a great example, I think I love Formula One, and a lot of people will say that Formula One is boring, but it's the thing that I find most interesting is not necessarily just the racing, it's the fact that you've got obviously an incredible amount of brains working on a singular idea. And if you look at McLaren, for instance, and the stuff that they're able to create and the quality level that they exist within, that's the way that I like to think about life, is that it's about putting the right brains into the problem, but understanding that we're all unique in the way that we do things. But it's about understanding that different people are thinking about different things all the time. And actually, if you're not thinking about the different things that different people are thinking about, and you do go and sit on a beach for 3 months, I promise you'll come back and the landscape will have completely changed. And that's the sphere and the scope of life, I'm afraid, in terms of the way that we can all look at all things you can sort of twist, I guess, into a semi-lifestyle type of business. And my lifestyle is based on the fact that I understand that productivity brings me things that I hope for in life. So that's based on my own positive affirmations, for instance, or those sorts of things. But it's the data on the internet is growing all the time. It's very powerful. And if you look at just because sales aren't the biggest part of some people's businesses, is that these social networks, for instance, that we're working on, even what we're recording on right now, people don't know everything about these sorts of things, or what are the processes in place behind all of these social media companies, and how do you feed these different babies different foods at different times in order to give you the results that you want? It's a strategic melody, basically, everything. But if you hit a bum note and you don't notice because you haven't got processes in place to allow you to see that bum note, generally within the internet and the speed that things happen, when it bites you, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, which I'm proud of, is that when it comes to bite, it comes very late, and it comes usually reasonably hard because you haven't spotted it early enough on. If you have something in place that allows you to look at data in a very fixed way over a period of time, it becomes second nature. It's like a language.
Because that's what I was going to say. Also, speed is of the essence when you're working online. If you wait and think of, okay, maybe this will be the new trend, and wait 3 months and then go, oh yes, this is the new trend, you've missed the wave. You've got to get in really quickly, and that's often what the data can show you. I mean, I've done some spreadsheets for myself, in fact, that run along a similar thing where it's monitoring stuff, and then you can see actually, hang on, you can see now there might be a problem next month. It gives you a month to deal with it. It's no good waiting till next month's over and then go, oh, I had a problem, now you've got to fix it. And it's just a bigger mess. And it's about understanding that data and then acting on it as quickly as possible, I think.
Yeah, and it's how far you want to go as well. And so I always find it funny. I live and work in the same place that I was born. I have a routine that's based around my working life, and that's because I have a lot of people here that I care about greatly, because coincidentally they're from the same area as me as well, and I have a great attachment to those things. So a lot of people, I would say, there's an element with that people don't understand why I am like I am, but then I think a lot of people don't understand why they are like they are as well. So the fast-paced element of the internet is also akin to the fast-paced element of my life. I can't imagine doing this if I had 3 children, for instance. But also, it's about a work-life balance with these sorts of things. And the big thing that everyone tries to sell you at the moment, very much so, is AI and automation within these processes. And I find that all particularly weird. And that's just because it's very easy to trust someone else's judgment based on a business model. But if everyone is running on the same thought process, then the results are doled based on that. And it's the same as that if you're able to take, if there's 20,000 pieces of something within the market and you know that it's there, if you're taking 200 of those pieces and then everyone else is having that stuff divvied out, then actually the competitiveness on that price, because of the fact that a lot of people don't think before they set pricing, for instance, there's almost no point in buying any of that stock, if that makes sense. And that's just because you wash the price of the product, and you also wash the quality of brands. And that's one of the things that I've seen with Amazon in general. And actually there's some very big brands that are pulling off now, such as Nike, for instance. And that's because they understand that really Amazon is, to an extent, a discount merchant, if that makes sense. And eBay is very similar. It's a well-constructed sort of, in a sense, it's a well-constructed bric-a-brac sort of store, isn't it? And it's got some other bigger brands on there, but they're pushing their own agenda. And it's about whether you're willing to allow them to push the agenda based on what you're capable of doing, or if you're more of the mindset of the fact that you're not particularly interested in growing your own brand anyway, and really what you like is money. And it just depends on what your mindset is within those realms. And then you can decide how you sell on these places and how much you'd like to understand about them. But how much you understand is akin to the amount of time that you spend on these things. And there's lots of people that I've spent a lot of my life with, and I'm very lucky to have the people around me that I do. But I promise you that most people don't understand what I do for a living. I run a retail company to them, but they don't understand what I do on a daily basis. And I think they just think I'm Crazy Craig that drinks a bottle and a half of wine on a Wednesday night, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people don't, and I think that's one of the dangers of any business. I mean, a lot of people end up working for the business and not actually working on it. And if you get bogged down, I mean, like for what you've mentioned, if you get bogged down with I need to package this, I need to get this out to so and so, I need to get this order going, your time's consumed with doing those things. Whereas, I mean, I know you've got other people that do those things. Your time's consumed with what next? What's the next step? How can we get ahead? How can we move this forward? What do we need to change? What do we need to adapt? And I'm like that as, okay, I'm the one doing the work for the business as well, but I spend a lot of time thinking ahead and what are we doing? How are we going to change this? Rather than just do. Because if you just do what you need to do and you don't think about where you're going, you just end up in a rut. And that's, I mean, in my industry, you can get away with it. In yours, you can't.
No, and the way that I always look at stuff in terms of the directing of the business is that it's orchestral. Is that you know, you have a number of people, or you want to start a band, let's say. So you start your band, and you're the director of that band, and you start off with, you know, 3 instruments, and everyone learns how to play those 3 instruments reasonably well. But within growth, it doesn't mean that you then employ someone else to play a new instrument. In my mind, what you do is you give a person that's well versed enough in their current instrument, you give them another instrument, and you say, could you try playing that as well, just for a while, just to see if it works. And so they'll be playing the trombone, but also, you know, they'll take turns at playing the trumpet. And actually, at the beginning, they won't play the trumpet particularly well at all, and it will also affect their trombone playing. But then you get to a point further down the road where, you know, they're adept at playing with both of them. You're reading off the same hymn sheet, for instance, and then you're allowed to look for someone that you can then give that hymn sheet to, or that piece of music and the instrument to them, and say, this is how you play this instrument, and this is the instrument that you'll be playing. And then eventually, when that person's learnt that instrument, then you say, would you mind playing the drums as well? And if that makes sense, it's all about understanding that I know how to play, without ego. I know how to play all of the instruments in my business. You know, I've played them all for a period of time to mean that I'm able to hand them over confidently. And you're one of the people that basically make the way we can look at it as that you're either making my instruments or you're writing my music. But either way, it's extremely beneficial to what I get up to on a daily basis.
Well, just on that, I mean, obviously we met a number of years back, and we've been working together ever since. But if all the spreadsheets I've made for you are making such a difference, which I do believe they are, because you keep asking me for more. But think back to before you and I met. How does your business / processes differ now to what they were then?
So the difference is that I'm able to look at things from the perspective of that I understand things a lot better, based on. So basically, you can look at data every day of the week, and without processing that data in some way, in your own way, to allow you to understand it. It's usually the very large data sets that they're usually, you know, if you're doing a sale by sale basis and you're doing 1,000 sales a day and you download 1,000 sales, it's very difficult to understand on a very basic level what that data means. So the difference, I think, is that I'm able to confidently structure other people's days around the birth idea, as it were. And like you said earlier, is that then it allows me to go out and look for other things, safe in the knowledge of the fact that people aren't doing things in their own way. And I don't mind people doing things in their own way. And we have big talks about the fact that I'm not afraid of people making mistakes, etc. But really, all the business is constant damage limitation, really. And so the way the business runs differently is that I'm confident in what I'm talking about. As today, for instance, I'm much more confident in my ability to understand what it is that I work on a daily basis, and the fact that I can go away and come back and that data will show me the same things on another day, if that makes sense. And they can show me that data anywhere in the world because it's something that I've created on my own. And there has to be an element of uniqueness in the way that you do things. And the big thing that, or the big three letters that I really like in life is USP, which is unique sell point. And there isn't really a unique sell point to some extent on the Amazon side of things, because of the way that they're set up. But if you have aspirations to do bigger and better things than just shipping into Amazon fulfillment centers, then it's about understanding that thinking about a spreadsheet in the shower is quite a fun thing to do.
Because I think what you and I have managed to learn, and what I think we can say with a fair bit of confidence, is there's no quick fix, there's no secret algorithm, there's no hack or any of that nonsense. It's literally hard work, it's foresight, it's thinking about what you want to do, where you want to go. It's then understanding what data, what you want, what you need to understand, and what data do you need to have available in order to understand that. And I mean, you and I have numerous meetings where we'll sit down and go, well, this is what you want to understand. How are we going to do it? What data do we have available? We've got that. Will that work? No, it won't. Will this work? Yes, that will work. How can we make this tell us what we want it to tell us? And it's not just there's not just some miracle solution out there. It's about thinking all that through. And it's also unique because you guys aren't necessarily the same as other companies, even the ones that do the same thing in essence that you do. You're different because you're working in a different way. So I mean, I don't even have like a product that, okay, I can make this and it'll help everybody. I make one specifically for you, as I will for other people, because everyone's different and that they need to do it the way that their thought pattern works.
Yeah, and it's about understanding the fact that, so since this, the times that we're in at the moment, I don't like to mention it too much in terms of what it is. But I've worked 7 days a week for the last 2.5-3 months, and that's a testament of the fact that my work ethic is based on an understanding of what is required in order to succeed, as it were. But all of those jobs become a lot easier because of the fact that I have a very strict understanding of data in the way that I would like to see things, and I'm not looking generally for profitability all the time, which I think a lot of people get hung up on, looking at your margins, and margins are very important, and they're more important in a lot of respects than something like turnover, but they should be working harmoniously together. But it's about understanding the fact that I can give my level of standardization, or my thought process on standardization, which is what you've said, is that I'm coming up with an idea, and it's not necessarily an idea that other people have thought of, and it might not even be a particularly useful idea, but what it is a different idea, and it usually leads on to other things. Hence why we're into spreadsheet 50 or 50, over 50 spreadsheets. Is that I'm confident that I can give a 20-year-old someone 20-year-old that's very good at maths, but also has an understanding of what I would like them to do, let's say in terms of purchasing, and I can trust that 20-year-old with £1 million of my money, if I had £1 million, but
we all wish. But I think there's not. Do you think there's another element to this? Because obviously, I mean, I live, eat, sleep, and breathe spreadsheets, as you know, and you do the same for your business, and so therefore for us, I mean, working 6-7 days a week it doesn't feel like work to me. In fact,
no.
I unwind after making spreadsheets by making some more spreadsheets. That is who I am. So for me, it doesn't feel like work. I actually thrive off of it. And do you think there's people like us who actually are doing the job that I won't say we're meant to do, but the one that fits with our personality? Do you think it's easier than for people who kind of go, okay, well, I need a job. What should I do? Okay, I know I'll do online retail because that should make me some money. Because they're not going to have the same drive that we're going to have, are they?
No, and to put it politely, is that I'm an anarchist, and in many respects you're an anarchist as well. But it doesn't. Not all anarchists have to be wearing the same capes, you know. I'm here to disrupt the industry that I work in. I'm here to disrupt the internet, as it were. And I don't. It's not for personal gratification. It's because, like you said, it's my personality is based on. If you plug me into most things, I think it's a bit sort of Duracell bunny, you know. And people tell me all the time that I need to chill out. Um, and it's usually people that I find are reasonably lazy with it, if that makes sense. And that's not taking anything away from what they get up to, different people need different levels of downtime. But like you said, my downtime comes when I close my eyes at night, and before that, you know, if I'm watching telly, then I'm usually watching telly, but then also lost in thoughts about what I need to be doing for the next 6 months. It's a positive, it's a mindset that I live within, and we can all turn that off. And but the thing with me is, a great example is that, you know, I go on holidays and things, and I've been with friends, and if you put me on a beach and you try and make me sit on a sun lounger for longer than 3 minutes, I'm off. You know, I need a football. I need a, I need to be in the sea. I need to be reading something, but whilst also listening to something. You know, that's just how I am. So it's, you know, and people have come up to me and told me that, you know, that it's ADHD or it could be these things, but I just think that it's basically just a drive that I have that's been gifted to me by the love of, for instance, my parents, but then also the fact that I've had a lot of stability in my growth. You know, I was live and work and then play in the same place my whole life. I understand what my strengths and weaknesses are, and I'm not afraid to be embarrassed by those.
Well, I mean, you say we obviously disrupted. I don't go disrupting things just for the sake of it. But what I
Mm,
refuse to do, and I think you're the same, is just because it's normally done that way, I don't care less. I'm doing it the way I believe to be best, regardless of whether it's normally done like that. If the way
mm,
it's normally done is the way I deem to be best, then fine. If it's not, well, I'll do it the way I think it's best. I don't care what other people say I should do.
mm,
And I think
mm,
that's where you and I are similar. Like,
mm.
okay, that's the done way. To hell with that. This is the way I'm doing because this is what I think's best, and that's it.
Hmm. And it changes your perception on life in general. You know, it's very easy to, you know, to lease a car, and you know, you've got the newest Mercedes Benz, etc., and it's leased, and then we get to a point like this where you don't have a company structure that allows you to sustain things like that leased car, or your staff members perhaps that aren't as fully invested as you are. And the people that I have here are invested in the idea based on the care that I place into their
Mm.
personal development. And and that's the way that I see life. I try to run with an ego that isn't based around how pretty I look in the mornings. I have an ego that's based around um, pushing myself in a positively sort of affirmed way towards um, the next level. And the issue is with that next level is that there's a level after that, and I'm fully aware of that, and I'm very comfortable with it. And it's something that excites me because I don't know what the next level will bring. And the great thing is that these sorts of analogies are very easy to make because of the fact that I work in the video games industry, and at times because of the way that I live my life, it does sometimes feel like a bit of a simulation, if that makes sense. Um, but I'm comfortable with that, and I enjoy it as well. And the best thing is with those is that if you're passionate enough about an idea, then you know, it's sing your own tune in life, and eventually the people that should be around should listen to that tune and then plug into it, and then hopefully you enjoy the tune that they're playing as well, or you might be playing the same tune. But that's the key element of life, is understanding that you don't have to dance in the same way as everyone else, and actually you don't need to be looking for the same set of goals as other people. I've got some very different set of goals to just looking at things based on profitability. And I've had lots of people tell me I don't know how to run a business before, but I've been doing it since 2012, and we turn over a fair amount of money. And basically, I'm talking to people that aren't interested in my tune. It doesn't mean that their tune is wrong either. But there's a space for all of that, you know.
Definitely. So one last question, if I may, because we are running out of time. But what anyone out there who's looking to go into online retail or has started or is trying to find their feet, any suggestions to them as to things that they can do to make that easier?
I think that for me. So a great example is, and we all go through depressive stages in life, etc., and you end up typing into Google reasonings as to why you think you're depressed, or why you're having anxiety, or those sorts of things. And what I found in life is that it's about reading enough to have a level of understanding, and not being afraid to ask other people, and not just computer says yes or computer says no. It's building relationships based on the fact that you are passionate about what you do. It doesn't have to be that you're passionate about online retail. I believe that for all walks of life is that if you're passionate about something, then you usually find other impassioned people as well. And then it's about reading enough till the point where you feel reasonably confident, and then getting on with it, because we could all read for the rest of our lives whether turmeric is good for our health, if that makes sense, or you could read enough to understand that scientifically it's generally agreed that it is reasonably good for you, for instance. Probably not for everyone, as a disclaimer. But for me, it's about getting up and going, and whether that be that your routine is based on consistently turning up at the office even when you don't have to be there, if that makes sense. I'm here more often than not. I don't really need to be here, but I enjoy being here, and people enjoy me being here, if that makes sense. So the idea is I think positively affirm what you hope to achieve in life. Make sure you write it down constantly. Don't just talk about things. Do the things that you're talking about, and usually, or at some points, it will have to be at the behest of other people, and whether that be at the behest of perhaps at times romantic relationships or those sorts of things. As a for instance, is that I have an understanding of that part of life, and I still feel as if I'm reasonably young. So it's not about, we said about eggs in one basket, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Move them around, and also just because you've popped an egg in a different basket doesn't mean that you can't move it into another one later, or bring it back and have a couple of eggs in. Does that make sense? Make sure that you're nimble on your feet, and the best thing about life at the moment is that if you have the right tools in place, it's very easy to be nimble. And a great example is, as a for instance, because of the way that I've been working, I work very early until very late, or reasonably late, and I haven't queued for any shops, but that's because it's because I've grown up in the same area. I know the rhythms of this area, and the way to I think win in life is to remain offbeat at all times.
I would agree. Well, Craig, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it.
No worries.
And hopefully all the online retailers have gotten something out of this, and we haven't just confused everybody. So thank you very much.
If anyone wants to talk to me as well, I'm happy to talk. So it's there's an element of sharing and caring in life, if that makes sense. But it's just about understanding that if you're as productive, or feel as if you're as productive as me, then there could be something that we could be working on together, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Rich.